You're easily replaceable. Don't you forget it. My name is Mark. I'm 29 years old. I work in construction for Crespo Electrical here in Chicago. And I'd been with Jessica for 3 years. That night, sitting in the kitchen of our apartment, while she scrolled through messages from her ex-boyfriend, Tyler, those words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. The apartment was silent, except for the sound of her fingers on the phone screen. That soft, constant tapping I had grown to hate. The smell of the dinner I'd cooked still hung in the air, a pasta with Alfredo sauce she'd barely touched because she was too busy typing. The cold light from her phone illuminated her face, highlighting that look of contempt that had become so familiar. I had asked why Tyler kept texting her about unfinished business. A simple question. Her answer wasn't just cruel. It was calculated. She didn't even look up from her phone when she said it. I remember the bitter taste that rose in my throat, like bile mixed with 3 years of swallowed disappointment. My hands were shaking slightly as I held my glass of water, trying to look calm while inside, something fundamental was breaking. "You're right," I told her, keeping my voice steady. I should remember that. Something inside me shifted in that moment, not exactly anger, more like a sudden clarity, like when you're driving in the fog for hours and it suddenly lifts, and you see exactly where you are. Jessica had always belittled me, but this was different. It felt like a warning I should have listened to months ago. She laughed, still typing. That short, dry laugh she used when she thought she'd won an argument. "Good. Now, stop being so paranoid about Tyler. He's just a friend." The lie slipped from her lips so easily it made me wonder how many others I'd swallowed without noticing. I knew that tone, that specific inflection she used when she was hiding something. It was the same voice she used when she said her new purse was a gift from her mum, when it had actually cost half my paycheck. I watched her fingers move across the screen, replying to messages she wouldn't let me see. She always angled the phone away when I walked by, as if I were a curious child who couldn't be trusted with adult secrets. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, the walls closing in as if the space itself knew our relationship was suffocating. 3 years of walking on eggshells, 3 years of her correcting how I dressed, how I spoke to her friends, how I held my fork at dinner. I remember once at a fancy restaurant she insisted on going to impress a friend from work. She angrily whispered that I was cutting my fish wrong. Is there a wrong way to cut fish? Apparently there was, and I was always finding it. 3 years of hearing how lucky I was that she put up with me. That guys like me should be grateful to have a woman like her. That without her, I'd go back to being just another construction grunt with no future. The words were always disguised as concern, as if she were doing me a favor by constantly reminding me of my limitations. "I'm going for a drive," I said, grabbing my keys from the counter. "Whatever." The indifference in her voice hurt more than any yell. "Bring back some milk when you come home. Organic, not that crap you bought last time." I grabbed my keys and left. The sound of the door closing behind me like a period at the end of a sentence I didn't yet have the courage to finish. In my pickup truck, the familiar smell of old leather and spilled coffee felt like an embrace. This was my space, the only place Jessica couldn't criticize me. She hated my truck, said it was a construction worker's cliché that I should buy a sedan like the one Tyler had. But I bought this truck with my first bonus as a supervisor, and every scratch in the paint told a story she never wanted to hear. I sat there for a long time, thinking about Victoria, Jessica's cousin. It was strange how my mind always drifted to her when I needed a mental break. At family gatherings, Victoria would give me this sympathetic look whenever Jessica made one of her nasty comments. Those brown eyes always seemed to be offering a silent apology for her cousin's behavior. She'd shake her head slightly, as if apologizing for something that wasn't her fault. I remember one Sunday lunch at Jessica's parents' house specifically. We were all sitting on the patio, the afternoon sun creating dancing shadows through the leaves of the maple tree. Jessica was talking about a promotion at her job, gesturing with her wine glass, when she suddenly turned to me and said, "Mark got a little promotion too, didn't you, honey? He supervises other electricians now." The way she said "little promotion," diminishing my achievement in front of everyone, made my stomach turn. That's when Victoria stepped in. "Supervising a team of 15 people on commercial construction projects is no small thing," she said calmly, but firmly. "It requires leadership, technical knowledge, and people skills. Congratulations, Mark. Jessica had shot a cutting glare at her cousin, but Victoria held her gaze, taking a sip of her iced tea as if she hadn't just challenged the queen of the realm. Once, at Jessica's birthday party, Victoria pulled me aside. It was right after Jessica had made a scene because the cake wasn't exactly what she'd ordered, humiliating the poor baker in front of all the guests. I had stepped out into the garden, needing some air, when I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder. It was Victoria, holding 2 cold beers, condensation dripping down her fingers. "I thought you might need this," she said, handing one to me. We stood in silence for a moment, listening to the crickets and the muffled music coming from inside the house. Her perfume, something soft like jasmine, mixed with the smell of freshly cut grass. "You don't deserve the way she talks to you," she whispered finally, her voice almost lost in the sound of the garden fountain. "Someone needed to tell you that." I brushed it off at the time. Family loyalty, I thought. She's just being nice. But sitting in that truck, I realized Victoria was the only person in Jessica's circle who had ever treated me like I mattered. My phone buzzed, interrupting my thoughts. A text from Jessica. "And get the organic milk, not that cheap crap. Oh, and stop by the pharmacy. I need aspirin. Your drama is giving me a headache." I stared at that message for a full minute. My drama? I had asked a simple question about her ex, and somehow I was the dramatic one. Then I deleted it without replying and drove to a hardware store. The store was about to close, but George, the owner, had known me for years. "Mark, what a surprise. Need something for a project?" he asked, his grey mustache twitching as he smiled. "Just needed to get out for a bit," I admitted, running my hand over a box of screws without really seeing them. "Trouble at home?" George had that wisdom of someone who's seen a lot of life. It wasn't an invasive question, just genuine concern. "Something like that," I replied. He nodded, understanding without needing an explanation. "You know, Mark, I worked with your dad before he passed. Good man, hard worker. He'd be proud of who you've become. Supervisor at 29, your own crew, respected by your peers. That's no small thing." His words hit me unexpectedly. My dad had died when I was 22, right after I started at Crespo Electrical. He never saw my promotion, never knew I'd made something of myself beyond being just another electrician. "Thanks, George," I managed to say, my voice a little thick. "And Mark," he added as I turned to leave, "anyone who doesn't see your worth doesn't deserve your time." When I got home 2 hours later, without the milk and without the aspirin, Jessica was asleep. Or pretending to be. It was hard to tell. I stood in the bedroom doorway watching her, the light from the hallway creating a stripe of brightness on the floor. She was curled up in the blanket, taking up the middle of the bed as she always did, leaving no room for me even in her sleep. Her phone was on the nightstand, still lit up with notifications. I could see Tyler's name appearing several times, each message like a small luminous dagger in the darkness of the room. For the first time in months, I felt nothing. No affection, no frustration, no guilt about Tyler's messages. Just an empty space where 3 years of trying to be good enough used to live. It was liberating and terrifying at the same time, like being in free fall without knowing where the ground was. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a shot of whiskey, the amber liquid glowing under the fluorescent light. On the fridge, a photo of us from early in our relationship was held up by a magnet. We were smiling on a beach in Myrtle Beach, tanned and seemingly in love. I tried to remember that feeling, but it was like trying to hold water in my hands. That's when I saw Jessica's notebook open on the table. Normally I would respect her privacy, but something made me look. It was a pros and cons list. My name on one side, Tyler's on the other. Under my name, stable, faithful, does chores, easy to control. Under Tyler's name, lawyer, BMW, apartment on the Gold Coast, important connections, promising future, understands me intellectually. At the bottom, a note in her handwriting, decision by the end of the month. I was being evaluated like a business proposal. 3 years reduced to a list of pros and cons. The worst part was easy to control. Is that how she saw me? Like a well-trained dog? I wrote down Victoria's number on a piece of paper. I'd gotten it from Jessica's phone months ago, back when I still cared about being included in family plans, when I still thought that if I just tried harder, I'd be accepted. The number was saved as Victoria Annoying Cousin, another. Red flag I had ignored. Tomorrow, I decided, I'm going to use this number. I didn't know exactly what I would say, but I needed to talk to someone who saw me as a person, not a renovation project or an investment option. I slept on the couch that night, the cold leather against my skin, the ticking of the wall clock marking the seconds until my liberation. I dreamed of my dad. He was fixing some old wiring and smiling, saying that a job well done was its own reward. I woke up with dried tears on my face and a crystal-clear decision in my mind. Jessica and I met at a bar in Wicker Park when I was 26. It was a Friday night, after a particularly tough week at work. I had just finished the electrical installation for a new office building and was celebrating with some co-workers. The bar was packed, the music too loud, the smell of spilled beer and expensive perfume mixing in the stuffy air. She was finishing her marketing degree, confident and sharp-tongued in a way that impressed me at the time. She was with a group of friends, all laughing loudly and taking selfies. Jessica stood out with her red dress and her posture of someone who knew exactly the effect she had on the men around her. She was the one who approached me, which should have been another sign. "You don't look like the type to hang out here," she said, leaning on the bar next to me. Her perfume was expensive and intense, making my head spin. "And what type do I look like?" I asked, already a little charmed by the attention from such a beautiful woman. "The type who actually works for a living," she answered, lightly touching the sleeve of my shirt where there was a small grease stain I hadn't noticed. "I like men who know how to use their hands." I had been working at Crespo Electrical for 2 years, finally making decent money after a rough patch in my early 20s. After my dad died, I had to take over the household bills and help my mum. Jessica seemed fascinated by my story of overcoming hardship, or at least that's what I thought at the time. She came on strong in those first few weeks. She'd show up at job sites with coffee and hot donuts, ignoring the curious stares of my colleagues. She sent me constant texts, provocative pictures during the day that made me blush and the guys on the crew give me crap. She made me feel like I had won something valuable, a prize other men coveted. There was one specific afternoon, about a month after we met. I was working on a renovation in Logan Square, all sweaty and dirty, when she showed up with a full lunch. She set up a small picnic right there on the construction site, on a clean tarp, complete with cloth napkins and everything. My co-workers couldn't believe it. Tony, a veteran electrician who worked with me, whispered, "She's way out of your league, Mark. Enjoy it while it lasts." I laughed at the time, certain he was wrong. Jessica chose me, I thought. Out of all the guys in suits she wanted me. Looking back, I see it all differently now. She wasn't falling in love with me. She was collecting me, molding me, preparing her project. So I was clay in her hands, ready to be shaped into what she thought a boyfriend should be. The changes started small, almost unnoticeable. First, it was the beard. "Honey, you look so much handsomer clean-shaven," she'd say, buying me an expensive razor I hadn't asked for. Then it was the clothes. "These t-shirts of yours are so old. Let's go buy something more presentable." She didn't like my friends from work. I remember a barbecue I hosted at our place, about 6 months after we started dating. I invited the whole crew, their wives and girlfriends. It was a disaster. Jessica spent the whole afternoon with a disgusted look on her face, barely hiding her contempt when Big Paul told a slightly off-color joke or when Joe's wife laughed too loudly. Later, after everyone had left, she exploded. "They're so crude," she said, rubbing her temples as if being near my people gave her a physical headache. "You can't take those people anywhere, Mark. If you want to get ahead in life, you need to surround yourself with people at the level you want to reach." "But they're my friends," I tried to argue. "Friends," she scoffed. "They're your co-workers. There's a difference. Friends elevate you, inspire you. Those people will only drag you down." Little by little, I stopped hanging out with them. I made excuses to miss the Sunday barbecues, the Saturday softball games. Tony tried to warn me once. "Mark, be careful you don't lose who you are trying to be, who she wants you to be." But I was too blind to listen. She picked out new clothes for me, brand-name shirts that cost more than I made in a day, pants that needed to be ironed, shoes that hurt my feet, which were used to steel-toed boots. When I complained about the price, she said, "It's an investment in your future. You can't show up to important places looking like a grunt." The word grunt came out of her mouth so naturally, as if it were an obvious insult, something I should be ashamed of. When I was promoted to crew supervisor, I was ecstatic. It was a huge achievement, the recognition of years of hard work and dedication. I came home with a bottle of champagne ready to celebrate. Jessica looked at the bottle, then at me and rolled her eyes. Supervisor, is that a reason to celebrate now? Mark, my friend Paula's son just got promoted to manager at Chase and he's our age. That's a real promotion. She didn't drink the champagne with me. Said she was on a diet and that I should think about doing the same. You're getting a beer belly, she commented, poking my stomach. It doesn't look good on someone who wants to be taken seriously. I drank the whole bottle by myself that night, sitting on the balcony, listening to the city noise and wondering why my happiness was never enough for her to share. Her family gatherings were the worst. The first time I went to her parents' house in Naperville, it was like entering another world. The house was huge with a pool, a gourmet outdoor kitchen, and a garden that looked like it was straight out of a magazine. Robert and Patricia, Jessica's parents, owned 3 furniture stores in the city. Sant'Angelo Furniture, where your dream becomes reality, was the slogan. They received me with cold politeness, that calculated courtesy of people assessing whether you're worthy of being there. What is it you do again, Mark? Robert asked during dinner, even though Jessica had already told him. I work with electrical installations, sir. I'm a crew supervisor at Crespo Electrical. Ah, yes. Honest work, he said, in a way that made honest sound like mediocre. And you plan to stay in that field? I'm always looking to grow, I answered, feeling the sweat on my palms. Of course, Patricia chimed in. It's important to have ambition. Jessica told us you're taking some night classes. I lied. I said yes, that I was studying business administration, when in reality, I barely had time to breathe between work and Jessica's constant demands. They would ask what I did, and when I said I worked with electrical installations, they'd nod politely before changing the subject to something more interesting, usually about their business or the European vacation they were planning. Jessica never defended me. In fact, she seemed to enjoy seeing me uncomfortable, as if my suffering validated her superiority. She'd laugh along when her dad made jokes about blue-collar wisdom, or when her mum wondered aloud if I'd ever want to evolve into something more professional. There was one dinner in particular that's burned into my memory. It was Patricia's birthday and the whole family was gathered. Jessica's brother-in-law, her older sister's husband, was a doctor. He spent the entire night talking about his new clinic, his important patients, his imported car. And you, Mark? He asked at one point, with that little smirk of someone who already knows the answer. Any news in the world of, what is it again? Electricity? Before I could answer, Jessica cut in. Mark is exactly where he was last year. Some people find their place and get comfortable there, right, honey? The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone looked at me with a mix of pity and contempt, as if I were a stray dog Jessica had brought home who didn't know how to behave. But Victoria was different. She was the only one who seemed genuinely interested when I spoke. She was 27, a second-grade teacher at a school in Portage Park, and she always sat near me at those hellish dinners. You must have incredible stories from your work, she said once while everyone else was talking about investments. I imagine the places you've seen, the challenges you've faced. I told her about the time we had to rewire a 19th century mansion downtown, how challenging it was to preserve the historic structure while modernizing the systems. She listened with genuine attention, asking intelligent questions. That's fascinating. You're like a surgeon for buildings, saving old structures and giving them new life. Jessica snorted from across the table. Don't exaggerate, Victoria. It's just wiring. It's not just anything, Victoria replied calmly. It's a specialized job that requires knowledge, precision, and creativity. Not everyone can do what Mark does. When I explained how we were rewiring the old auditorium theater downtown, she listened to every word. She asked me about the technical challenges, about what it was like to work in a building with so much history. You must feel so proud, she said, knowing that your work will allow future generations to enjoy that cultural space. It was the first time in a long time that someone had spoken about my job with respect, as if it mattered, as if I mattered. When Jessica's dad made another joke about electricians, something about how many it takes to change a light bulb, Victoria would elegantly divert the conversation. Speaking of specialized work, she said, Mark fixed my garbage disposal last month. The technician I called before wanted to charge me $1,000 and said it would take a week. Mark fixed it in an afternoon and wouldn't accept any payment. Saved me money and a headache. Jessica shot her a cutting look. He likes to play with tools, she said dismissively. He likes to help people, Victoria corrected quietly but firmly. Our eyes met across the table. She smiled, a small but genuine smile, and something warm spread through my chest, something that had nothing to do with gratitude. It was recognition. For the first time in a long time, someone saw me. The red flags with Jessica multiplied over the months like weeds in an abandoned garden. Every day brought a new criticism, a new comparison, a new reminder that I wasn't enough. She started going out with friends and not inviting me. Thursday nights became a fixed girls' night. When I asked about it, she'd roll her eyes. "You wouldn't fit in," she'd say simply. "We talk about things you wouldn't understand. Marketing, trends, culture. You'd be bored." "But I'd like to try," I insisted once. "Mark, please. It's hard enough explaining to my friends what you do. Don't make me have to translate conversations all night." She criticized absolutely everything. How I loaded the dishwasher. "The plates have to face down, Mark, that's obvious." How I drove. "You drive like a truck driver, no class at all." How I pronounced certain words. "It's croissant, not croissant, for God's sake." There was one night I made a special dinner. I researched recipes, bought expensive ingredients, spent hours in the kitchen. I made shrimp risotto, bought a wine the clerk guaranteed was good, set the table with candles and everything. She came home, looked at everything and said, "Risotto? Seriously? Do you know how many calories are in this? And is this a domestic wine?" "Mark, I told you domestic wine is embarrassing to serve." She ate 3 bites, said she wasn't hungry and went to watch Netflix in the bedroom. I ate alone by candlelight, the risotto getting cold on my plate, the bitter taste of rejection stronger than any seasoning. When Tyler started texting her 6 months ago, it was like watching a car crash in slow motion. You see it happening, you know it's going to be bad, but you can't look away or stop it. "He's going through a divorce," she explained when I first asked about the constant texts. "I'm just giving him emotional support. It's what friends do." But the texts came at all hours. During dinner, her phone would vibrate, and she'd grab it immediately, smiling at the screen in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. In the middle of the night, I'd wake up to notifications, and she'd be texting back, whispering so as not to fully wake me, though the glow of the screen and the sound of her fingers made it impossible to go back to sleep. Her phone was always face down now, locked with a password she changed frequently. When it rang, she'd check the caller ID before answering, and if it was him, she'd leave the room. "I have to take this. It's about the divorce," she'd say. As if I were too stupid to notice the different tone of her voice, the soft laughter, the way she played with her hair while she talked. She'd take calls in the bathroom, with the shower running to muffle the conversation. 40 minutes in the bathroom became routine. When she came out, the mirror would be steamed up, but she'd be dry, proof she'd spent the whole time on the phone. And she started saying things like, "Tyler values my advice. He really listens to me. He says I have a unique perspective on things. It's nice to talk to someone who really understands the corporate world." The implication was clear. Unlike me, who didn't understand, who didn't listen, who didn't value her. One night she was laughing loudly on the phone with him. I was trying to watch TV, but her laughter filled the apartment. It was a laugh I hadn't heard in years. Genuine, amused, alive. "Sounds like you're having fun," I commented when she finally hung up. "Jealousy is so ugly." "Mark," she replied, but there was a glint in her eye, as if my discomfort were a victory. "It's not jealousy. It's just, when was the last time we laughed like that together?" She paused for a moment, analyzing me. "Maybe when you have something interesting to say, I'll laugh." "Tyler has fascinating stories. Cool cases, business dinners, trips. You want me to laugh at your stories about wires and circuit breakers?" Her casual cruelty no longer surprised me, but it still hurt. It was like a paper cut, small but persistent, slowly bleeding my self-esteem away. The night she called me easily replaceable, I finally understood. She had been preparing me for this moment for months, maybe years. Every criticism, every comparison, every moment of contempt was a brick in the wall she was building between us. Sitting in that kitchen, hearing her say those words while texting another man, I realized it wasn't a threat, it was a promise. She was already replacing me. She was just waiting for the right moment to make it official. The next morning, Jessica left for work early without saying goodbye. I heard her in the bathroom, the sound of the hairdryer, the spray of expensive perfume, the click of her heels on the tile floor. She walked past the living room where I was pretending to sleep on the couch, hesitated for a second, then kept going. The door shut with a sense of finality. I called Crespo Electrical and said I was sick the first time in 2 years. Mr. Carlson, my boss, sounded concerned. "Everything okay, Mark?" "You never miss a day. Just need to take care of some personal stuff, Mr. Carlson." Of course. Everybody needs a day sometimes. The guys here can handle it." His understanding, so simple and non-judgmental, almost made me cry. At work, I was respected, valued. It was only at home that I felt small. I sat at the kitchen table staring at Victoria's number that I'd written down the night before. The paper was crumpled from how many times I'd picked it up and put it down, decided and then backed out. What was I doing? Calling my fiancé's cousin because my feelings were hurt. It sounded pathetic even to me. But then I remembered her look, that time in the garden at Jessica's birthday party. "You don't deserve this." Maybe she was just being kind, but no one else had ever said that. Not once in 3 years had anyone suggested I was worth more than what Jessica offered me. My mom tried in her own way, saying things like, "That girl is very demanding, isn't she?" But never directly, never clearly. I dialed before I could talk myself out of it. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I almost hung up. "Mark?" Victoria's voice sounded surprised, but not unpleasantly so. "Is everything okay? Is it Jessica?" How did she know? How did she always know? "I need to ask you something," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "And I need you to be honest with me." Silence for a moment. I could hear kids in the background, probably her students. "Hold on a second," she said. "Class, continue with your coloring activity. Miss Victoria will be right back." I heard footsteps, a door closing, the noise muffling. "Okay, I can talk now. What happened? Do you think Jessica loves me?" The pause stretched for so long I thought she'd hung up. I could hear her breathing, careful, measured. Finally, Victoria said, "Can we meet up somewhere? This isn't a conversation for the phone." My heart sped up. If she wanted to reassure me, to say everything was fine, she would have done it over the phone. Wanting to meet meant there was something to say, something that needed to be said while looking me in the eye. "Of course. Where?" "There's a coffee shop in Lincoln Park on Normandy Avenue. The Retreat Cafe. Know it?" "I know it." "What time?" "My lunch break is at noon. Meet you there?" "I'll be there." "Mark," she started, then stopped. "I'll see you soon." She hung up. I stood there holding the phone, staring at the dark screen, wondering if I'd just taken the first step out of a hole or into an even bigger one. I spent the next 2 hours obsessively cleaning the apartment. I did the dishes Jessica had left in the sink, vacuumed the floors, organized her magazines on the coffee table. It was as if by tidying up the physical space, I could tidy up the mess in my head. I found things around the apartment that told the story of our relationship. A picture frame with our photo from a trip to Lake Geneva, both of us smiling. But now I could see the tension in my smile. A self-help book she'd given me, How to Become the Best Version of Yourself. It was untouched, the spine not even cracked. A birthday card from me last year where she'd written, "To my boyfriend, who will one day be all he can be." Not even on my birthday card could she accept me as I was. I showered, shaved, and picked out a clean shirt. Not the expensive one she'd bought, but a simple blue one my mom had given me for Christmas. I felt more like myself in it. I got to the coffee shop 15 minutes early. It was a cozy place with plants everywhere, soft music, the smell of freshly ground coffee dominating the air. I chose a table in the corner where I could see the entrance. Victoria arrived wearing a yellow summer dress that made her look like a ray of sunshine walking into the cafe. Several men turned their heads as she passed, but she didn't seem to notice, her eyes searching for me until they found mine. She sat across from me and folded her hands on the table. Up close, I could see the worry in her eyes, tiny lines of tension that didn't suit her normally serene face. "You look tired," she said softly. "Didn't sleep very well." I can imagine, she signaled the waiter. 2 coffees, please, and she looked at me. Have you had lunch? I couldn't eat anything right now. 2 coffees then, and a cheese Danish for him, she told the waiter. You need to eat something even if you don't want to, she said to me when we were alone again. She told me what she said to you, Victoria began without preamble. About being replaceable. My stomach dropped. How did she tell you? She called me last night laughing. Victoria's voice was low, controlled, but I could feel the anger underneath. She said she'd put you in your place. That you just took it and didn't even fight back. She was proud of it, Mark, proud that she hurt you. Every word was a punch. Jessica had called her cousin to brag about humiliating me. Mark, that's not normal. People who love each other don't say things like that. They don't call other people to laugh about it. Victoria seemed to be choosing her words carefully. She was testing you to see if you would finally wake up. Testing me. To see if you'd accept anything. If you accepted that, she knows she can do whatever she wants, including openly dating Tyler. I felt something shatter inside my chest, an almost audible sound like splintering glass. I've been wondering if I'm crazy, if I'm too sensitive, if I'm overreacting. You're not crazy. Victoria reached across the table and touched my hand. Her hand was warm, soft, comforting in a way that made me realize how starved I was for a gentle touch. Jessica has always been cruel. Even when we were kids, she'd say horrible things and then act like you were the problem for getting your feelings hurt. Why did no one ever say anything? Because she's good at making people feel like they deserve it. She has this disturbing talent for twisting reality, for making you question your own perception. It's manipulation, Mark, pure and simple. Victoria's eyes shone with an anger I'd never seen before. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, seeing someone so furious on my behalf. But you don't deserve it, Mark. You're kind and hardworking. You fix things for people without being asked. You remember how I like my coffee? A macchiato with almond milk and a sprinkle of cinnamon. You listen when I talk about my students. You remember their names. You held my hand that day at the hospital when my dad had his heart attack and Jessica was too busy to show up. Jessica doesn't see any of that. I looked down at our hands. She hadn't pulled hers away and I didn't want her to. It was the most honest connection I'd felt in years. I've been thinking about leaving, I said finally. You should, Victoria said immediately, without hesitation. You should have left her a long time ago. Ever since that time she made you sleep in the car because you came home too sweaty from work for her parents' dinner party. Or when she pretended not to know you at her company event because you were in your work uniform. You knew about that. Mark, I know about all of it. She tells these stories as if they're funny, as if humiliating you is an amusing hobby. Shame burned my face. All this time the whole family knew. They all saw how she treated me and no one said a thing. Something shifted in the air between us. Victoria noticed it too because she pulled her hand back, blushing slightly. Her cheeks turned a rosy color that made me want to touch them. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't. You're still with her and I... Don't be sorry, please. I looked at her face, really looked at it for the first time. The brown eyes with flecks of gold when the light hit them. The small nose with almost invisible freckles. The full lips she bit when she was nervous, like now. Can I ask you something else? She nodded, still biting her lower lip. Would you like to have dinner with me? Not as family. Just us. The silence stretched on. I could hear my heart beating, the hiss of the espresso machine's steam wand, the muffled conversations from other tables. Everything seemed distant except for her. Victoria smiled, a smile that started small and grew until it lit up her whole face. Mark, I've waited 3 years for you to ask me that question. 3 years. Since the very first family dinner you came to. You arrived with flowers for my aunt. You offered to help in the kitchen. You talked to my grandfather about baseball even though you hate sports. I saw how you treated everyone with respect, even when they didn't return it. And I thought, that man deserves so much more than what he's going to get here. Why did you never? Because you were with my cousin. Because you seemed to love her. Because I convinced myself it was just loneliness, that any kind man would make me feel this way. But it wasn't true. It was you. It was always you. And Jessica, what do we do about her? You tell her the truth, that it's over, that she chose someone else, that you're moving on. She'll say we had an affair. Let her. The people who matter will know the truth. And anyone who believes her without question isn't worth our worry. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I could take a full breath. As if I'd been underwater all this time and had finally broken the surface. That evening, I walked into our apartment with a different energy. Every step was firm, decisive. I knew what I had to do. Jessica was on the couch, phone glued to her ear, laughing at something Tyler had said. She was wearing the $300 silk pajamas she only wore on special occasions. The apartment smelled of her expensive perfume mixed with wine. An open bottle of wine was on the coffee table with 2 used glasses. 2 glasses. She'd had company. "I gotta go," she said when she saw me, her voice instantly changing from melodious to irritated. "Mark's here." She hung up and looked at me expectantly, like a teacher waiting for an explanation from a problem student. "Where's the milk? Where have you been all day?" "I forgot the milk." And I spent the day thinking. Her expression darkened, her eyebrows knitting together in a way I knew well. It was the prelude to an explosion. "You forgot? I specifically asked you for 2... We need to talk," I interrupted. My voice came out firmer than I expected. Jessica blinked, clearly not used to being cut off. For a moment, she looked genuinely surprised. "About what?" she asked, already on the defensive. "About Tyler?" "About Tyler. About how you treat me, about us. About everything." She placed her phone carefully on the table, her movements deliberate, calculated. She adjusted herself on the couch, crossing her legs, assuming a position of power. "Oh, this is going to be good. Let me guess. You stewed all day about our little chat last night, and now you want to have a big relationship talk. How mature, Mark, how evolved." The sarcasm dripped from every word like venom. "I want you to stop talking to Tyler," I said simply. Jessica laughed. Not a nervous or surprised laugh, a genuine, hearty laugh, as if I'd just told the world's funniest joke. "Excuse me," she managed between laughs. "You want what?" "I'm not comfortable with it. The constant texts, the calls, the visits when I'm not here. It's not appropriate for someone who's engaged." "Visits? What are you talking about? And since when do you decide who I can and can't talk to?" "Since I became your fiancé. And there are 2 wine glasses on the table, Jessica. You don't drink alone." She looked at the glasses as if seeing them for the first time. The cleaning lady must have left them there. "The cleaning lady comes on Tuesdays. Today is Thursday." Her silence said everything. "Tyler is my friend," she said finally, changing tactics. "I'm not going to cut off a friendship because you're insecure. It's not about insecurity. It's about respect." "It's exactly about insecurity." Jessica stood up, crossing her arms, her battle stance. "This is what I'm talking about, Mark. You feel threatened by everything. Tyler has a successful law firm. He drives a BMW. He has a penthouse on the Gold Coast. Of course, that makes you uncomfortable." The words hit exactly where she intended, but instead of the usual spiral of shame, I felt only clarity. She was confirming everything Victoria had said. "You're right," I said calmly. "I am uncomfortable, but not because of Tyler's money or his car." "Then because of what?" "Because my fiancé is having an emotional affair with another man and acting like I'm crazy for noticing." Jessica's face turned cold, all pretense of innocence evaporating. "Emotional affair?" She spat the words. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" "When was the last time you laughed at something I said?" Silence. "When was the last time you took a call from me in front of other people?" More silence. "When was the last time you defended me to anyone? To your parents, your friends, anyone?" "I shouldn't have to defend you," she said coldly. "Yes, you should." The words came out louder than I intended. That's what people do when they love someone. They defend them. They support them. They don't tell them they're easily replaceable. My voice echoed in the apartment. For a moment, we just stared at each other, years of unsaid hurt hanging in the air between us. Jessica stared at me for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was the coldest expression I had ever seen on her face. It was the smile of a predator that had decided to stop playing with its prey. "You want the truth, Mark?" she said, her voice dangerously calm. "Tyler asked me to move in with him. His divorce is final next month. He wants me to be there when it's all over." As the new Mrs. Martin, the words should have devastated me. 6 months ago, they would have completely destroyed me. Instead, I felt a strange sense of relief. The mask had completely fallen away. So you are cheating, I said simply. I'm keeping my options open, she said, lifting her chin proudly, which is exactly what someone should do when they're with a person who will never be anything more than an electrician. There's nothing wrong with being an electrician. There's nothing wrong with it if you're satisfied with mediocrity, but I'm not. Jessica picked up her phone again, her fingers already finding Tyler's contact. Tyler values ambition. He values intelligence. He values someone who wants more out of life than fixing other people's problems for an hourly wage. Hourly wage? I'm a supervisor, Jessica. I'm salaried, I have a crew, responsibilities, details. You still work with your hands. You still come home dirty. You still smell like manual labor. I just stood there absorbing the pure cruelty of it. 3 years of small cuts had led to this moment. Jessica revealing exactly what she had always thought of me. I'm going to stay at my brother's place tonight, I said calmly. Great, I'll call Tyler. Maybe he'll want to come over this time, since you're leaving. She was already typing as she spoke, a small smile on her lips. At the door, I turned around. By the way, Jessica, I had coffee with Victoria today. Her fingers stopped. She looked up slowly, and for the first time that night I saw uncertainty in her face. Why? The word came out sharp as a knife. She thinks I deserve better than this. Victoria? She laughed, but the sound was forced now. Victoria knows nothing about relationships. She's been single for 2 years. No man wants her because she's too pathetic, always meddling in other people's lives. Maybe she was just waiting for the right person. I left before she could answer, but I heard the sound of something smashing against the door as soon as I closed it. Probably the wine glass. In my truck, my heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I called Victoria. How did it go? She asked immediately, without even saying hello. Exactly like you said it would. I started the engine, the familiar rumble calming me down. She chose Tyler. She's moving in with him when the divorce is final. Oh, Mark, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I think this was the best thing that could have happened. I'm heading to my brother's house. Can I see you tomorrow? Of course. Same coffee shop. Actually, how about a real dinner? There's an Italian place in Little Italy I've always wanted to try. She laughed, a light musical sound. I'd love that. 8 o'clock. Perfect. Mark? Her voice turned soft. You did the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did. I know. For the first time in a long time, I know. My brother Danny lived in a 2-flat in Bridgeport. It was a simple but cozy house, with a small front garden that his wife Marina tended to with care. When he opened the door and saw my face and the duffel bag on my shoulder, he didn't ask any questions. "Marina!" he yelled. "Set another place at the table and get the good beers." He led me straight to the back porch. It had been our spot since we were kids, where we solved problems and shared secrets. The brick barbecue we'd built together was still there, a little crooked but functional. Danny looked at my face and got 2 beers from the fridge. "Jessica?" he asked, popping the tops with the Swiss Army knife our dad had given him. I told him everything. Every detail, every humiliation, every revelation. Marina joined us at some point, bringing out snacks and more beer, listening in silent solidarity. Danny had never liked Jessica, but had kept quiet because he thought I was happy. As I spoke, his expression grew darker, his fists clenching and unclenching. "She was planning this for months," he said when I finished. "The comments about Tyler, the criticisms, making you feel like crap. She was setting you up to take the fall when she dumped you. Why not just break up with me?" Marina was the one who answered. "Because she wanted a backup plan. If things with Tyler didn't work out, she could keep you around. You were the safe harbor while she was testing deeper waters." Danny took a long swallow of beer. "Mark, you know I never butt into your relationships, but that woman is poison. I remember that time you guys came to my birthday barbecue. She spent the whole time on her phone, complaining about the heat, the music, the food. When you went to the bathroom, she told me it was the last blue-collar barbecue she was ever attending." "She said that?" "She did," and Marina heard her. "That's why we never invited you guys to anything again. I'm sorry, man. I should have realized—" "No," Danny interrupted me. "You were in love. Or you thought you were. You can't see clearly when you're in the middle of the storm." We sat drinking in silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the Bridgeport night, Dogs barking, distant music from a party. Life going on even though my world had just been turned upside down. What about Victoria? Marina asked suddenly. What about her? Don't play dumb. I always saw the way you two looked at each other at those family dinners. There's some chemistry there. I told them about the coffee, about the dinner invitation. Marina smiled for the first time that night. Victoria is a sweetheart. Remember when she helped out at Peter's school bake sale? She stayed all day organizing, selling, never complained. And when Peter spilled juice on her, she just laughed and said purple was her favorite color anyway. She's special, I agreed. She's what you deserve, brother. Someone who sees you, not a project to be renovated. The next morning, I woke up on Danny's couch with the sun on my face, and for the first time in months, no anxiety in my chest. No fear of what Jessica would say about anything. No tension about doing something wrong, just peace. My phone had 47 messages from Jessica. They ranged from furious to manipulative to desperate. How dare you humiliate me like this? You're going to regret this. Can we talk about this like adults? Tyler thinks you're being ridiculous. Come home. We can fix this. You won't find anyone better than me. Victoria is just using you to get back at me. I did love you in my own way. That last one made me laugh. Her own way. Her way of loving was to destroy a person until they felt grateful for crumbs of affection. I deleted them all without replying. Victoria sent me a text. Thinking of you. Can't wait for tonight. That one, I answered. Me too. Thank you for helping me see. I spent the day taking care of practical things. I went to the apartment while Jessica was at work and got my essential belongings. I left the engagement ring on the kitchen counter with a note. You were right. I am easily replaceable. I hope Tyler makes you happy. I'll get the rest of my things on Saturday. Please don't be home. Simple, direct, no drama. That night I got ready carefully. Marina insisted on lending me one of Danny's shirts, but I refused. I wanted to be myself. I wore my best shirt, the one my mum said brought out my eyes. Clean jeans, simple but well-kept shoes. I arrived at the restaurant 15 minutes early. It was a cozy place, soft lighting, low Italian music, the aroma of garlic and basil in the air. Nothing pretentious, just welcoming. Victoria arrived right on time, wearing a simple red dress that made her glow. When she smiled upon seeing me, I felt butterflies in my stomach like a teenager. You came, she said, sounding genuinely surprised. Why wouldn't I? I thought maybe you'd change your mind. That Jessica would convince you to go back. She's good at that. Not anymore. That power is gone. We sat, ordered wine, and for the first time in years I had a real conversation. We talked about everything. Her students, her hopes of becoming a principal, her fear of spiders, her secret love for bad horror movies. I told her about my dream of one day owning my own company, about how I still missed my dad, about my secret collection of science fiction novels that Jessica never knew about because she'd find it ridiculous. You read sci-fi? Her eyes lit up. I love it. Who's your favorite author? And so we went, discovering layers of each other, laughing for real, with no filters, no fear of judgment. When she laughed at a story about Danny and me getting stuck on a roof during an installation, it was a genuine belly laugh, throwing her head back, her eyes watering. It was beautiful. She was beautiful. Victoria, I said when dessert arrived, a tiramisu to share. I need to be honest about something. She paused with her spoon halfway to her mouth, concern crossing her face. What is it? I've had feelings for you for a long time, but I would never admit it while I was with Jessica. I want you to know that this us, it's not a rebound. It's not revenge. It's real. She put down her spoon and took my hand across the table. Mark, I waited 3 years. I can wait longer if you need time to heal. What if I don't? What if I know exactly what I want? She squeezed my hand. Then that makes 2 of us. The following Saturday, the family gathering arrived like a hurricane. The whole family got together annually to celebrate Patricia's birthday, and of course gossip about everyone's lives. Victoria and I had arranged to arrive together, but not holding hands. We wanted to see everyone's natural reaction. We pulled into the driveway at exactly 2 p.m. Through the window I could see Jessica holding court, gesturing dramatically, probably telling her version of the story where she was the victim and I was the ungrateful villain. She had no idea what was coming. "Ready?" Victoria asked, smoothing down the blue dress she'd chosen. "You look beautiful," I said, and she blushed. "You look handsome too. That shirt makes you look like you know what you want." It was a new shirt, one I'd picked out myself. Navy blue, well cut. It made me feel confident. "Let's do this then," I said, offering my arm. She linked hers through mine, and we walked to the door. Jessica saw us through the window before we even reached the front door. I watched her face, cycle through a whole spectrum of emotions. Confusion when she saw me, disbelief when she saw Victoria with me, and then pure fury when she realized our arms were linked. When Patricia opened the door, her professional smile faltered when she saw us together. Victoria and Mark, together. "Hi, Aunt Patty," Victoria said calmly. "Yes, we came together." Jessica was already pushing past relatives to get to us, her black dress fluttering like the wings of an angry bat. Her face was red, her eyes blazing with rage. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice sharp enough to make the entire party stop and stare. "What are you doing here with her?" "Hello, Jessica," I said calmly, keeping my voice neutral. "Victoria invited me." "She invited you? You're my fiancé." "Actually, I'm not anymore." I kept my voice steady as the whole party turned to watch us. "Check the kitchen counter where I left the ring, or where it was, since you've probably already returned it to make a down payment on the ring Tyler's going to give you." Jessica's face turned an even deeper shade of red, if that was possible. "You left me for my cousin," she practically shrieked. "You cheated on me with my own family." "I've never cheated on anyone," I said calmly, "unlike some people." Robert stepped forward, his imposing presence trying to control the situation. "What is going on here? Can someone please explain?" "Dad, Mark is," Jessica started. "Jessica has been having an affair with Tyler Martins for months," Victoria said clearly, her voice carrying across the silent room. "She told Mark he was easily replaceable and that she was going to move in with Tyler as soon as his divorce was final. So Mark left, which any person with dignity would do." "That's not," Jessica began, but Robert cut her off. "Tyler Martins, the lawyer? Isn't he married?" "Was," Patricia said slowly, the pieces clicking into place. "I heard he's getting a divorce, something about another woman." All eyes turned to Jessica. The room fell silent, the kind of silence that precedes a storm. Jessica looked around at her family, realizing she had lost control of the narrative. "His divorce will be final soon," she said defensively. "It's not what you're thinking." "What is it then?" asked Uncle Thomas, Victoria's father. "You were seeing a married man while you were engaged." "It's not that simple." "Seems pretty simple to me," said Grandma Rosa from her place of honor on the couch. "You cheated on this good boy with a married man. Where is your shame, girl?" "At least Tyler has a future," Jessica said desperately. "At least he's not just an electrician." The contempt in her voice echoed through the room. I saw several family members exchange uncomfortable looks. Uncle August, who owned a mechanic shop, frowned. Aunt Carmen, who was a chef, shook her head. "Mark is a good man," said Victoria's mother, Helen, quietly but firmly. "He has always been respectful and kind to us." "He fixed our garage door last summer," added Uncle Thomas. "Wouldn't take any money. Said it was for family." "Helped me install my new air conditioner," said Aunt Carmen. "Fixed the wiring in my store after that short circuit," Robert added slowly, looking at his daughter. "Saved my inventory. Refused payment too. He's helped half this family with electrical problems," Patricia said, looking at her daughter with obvious disappointment. "Always available, always helpful. And this is how you treat him." Jessica realized she was cornered. Her family was seeing her clearly for the first time. The veneer of superiority she had polished for years was cracking. "You don't understand," she tried one last time. "Mark and I weren't compatible. We want different things out of life." "Yes," Victoria said. "You want a man who cheats on his wife. Mark wants someone who respects him." "You," Jessica spun on her cousin, "you always wanted what was mine. You've always been jealous." "Jealous?" Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Jessica, I pitied you. You had a wonderful man who loved you, and you threw him away for what? For a German car and an important last name. It's more than that. Is it?" Then tell me, what does Tyler offer you besides status and money? Does he know your favorite dish? Does he remember your birthday without a Facebook reminder? Has he ever held your hand during a bad movie just because you wanted to see it? Silence. Mark did all of that, Victoria continued, and more, and you called him replaceable. Grandma Rosa stood up, a small but imposing figure. Jessica, come here. Jessica approached hesitantly. Her grandmother looked her up and down, then said, loud enough for everyone to hear, you had gold in your hands and you traded it for shiny costume jewelry. The shame is yours, Mark, she turned to me. You are welcome in this family, with or without her. Jessica's face crumbled. Tears started to fall, but no one moved to comfort her. This isn't fair, she whispered. No, Robert said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Fair was what Mark deserved and never received from you. Victoria, Mark, please stay. Jessica, I think it's best if you go. Dad, she protested. You made your choice, daughter. Now, live with the consequences. Jessica looked around the room. One last time, searching for an ally, someone to take her side. She found no one. Even her older sister looked away. She left, slamming the door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. The ensuing silence was broken by Grandma Rosa. Well, now that the circus is over, can we eat? I'm starving, and the smell of that roast is killing me. The tension broke. People laughed nervously, conversations restarted, and life moved on. Victoria squeezed my hand. Are you okay? I'm great, I said, and it was the truth. I feel free. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of conversation, food, and surprisingly, acceptance. Robert pulled me aside at one point. Mark, he said, looking uncomfortable, I owe you an apology. I let my daughter treat you poorly under my own roof. That's not right. Mr. Santangelo, No, let me finish. You're a good man. Anyone can see that. I let my own prejudice about professions cloud my judgment. My father was a carpenter, you know. Built the first furniture store with his own hands. I forgot where I came from. He held out his hand. I shook it. Take care of Victoria, he said. She deserves to be happy. I plan to, sir. And Mark, call me Robert. We're family now. 6 months later, the whole story had become family legend. Tyler's wife, Christine, found the messages through the iCloud backup he forgot she had access to. It wasn't just messages, it was pictures, promises, detailed plans for the future. Christine was not the type of woman to take cheating quietly. She had connections, influence, and more importantly, she had proof. She sued Tyler for adultery. A rare move but possible when there's concrete evidence of emotional distress. Jessica became persona non grata in their social circle. The wives of Tyler's partners treated her like poison. No one wanted a homewrecker around. Tyler lost his partnership at the law firm. Apparently, having a sex scandal wasn't good for the firm's image. He lost half his assets in the divorce, including the Gold Coast penthouse that had so impressed Jessica. Jessica lost her job when the scandal reached her workplace. Apparently, having an affair with a married client violated several company policies. The fact that she had used her corporate email for some of the more compromising messages didn't help. She moved back in with her parents at 31, jobless, boyfriendless, with her reputation in tatters. Robert and Patricia, though they loved her, set strict rules. No visits from Tyler, an active job search and mandatory therapy. But Chicago, despite its size, is a small town when it comes to gossip. People talk, especially in certain circles. The story of the girl who traded her hard-working fiancé for a rich lover who left her high and dry became a cautionary tale at Sunday brunches. Jessica learned what it felt like to be easily replaceable when her friends abandoned her one by one. The married friends didn't want her near their husbands. The single ones didn't want the desperate competition. She became toxic by association. Meanwhile, Victoria and I took it slow. We dated the right way, no rush, no drama, just two people getting to know each other without masks. She introduced me to her world. She took me to the school where she taught. The kids loved me immediately, especially when I showed them some simple tricks with static electricity. Mr. Mark became a common name in her classroom. I introduced her to my friends from work, the ones Jessica had made me abandon. They welcomed her with open arms. Tony said, "Now this is a real woman, Mark. You hold on to this one." On Sundays, we went to Danny's for barbecues. Marina and Victoria became best friends almost instantly. It was beautiful to see them conspiring in the kitchen, laughing at jokes Danny and I didn't get. A year later, on an ordinary Thursday afternoon, I took Victoria to that same coffee shop where she first told me I deserved better. I had arranged everything in advance. The owner, who knew us well by now, had saved our favorite table. There were flowers, her favorite purple irises, nothing too flashy, just enough. "Victoria," I began when the coffee arrived. "A year ago you told me I deserved better," she smiled. "And you did. But what I didn't know then was that better was you. It was always you." I got down on one knee right there in the middle of the coffee shop. People stopped talking. Someone pulled out a phone to film. "Victoria Helena Santos, you taught me what it means to be valued. You showed me that love isn't about diminishing someone, but about growing together. Will you marry me?" Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling. "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." The whole coffee shop applauded. The owner brought out complimentary champagne. It was perfect in its simplicity, just like us. The wedding took place 2 years after that fateful family gathering. It was at a beautiful old estate in Michigan by the lake. Nothing extravagant, just lovely and filled with love. Danny was my best man, of course. In his speech, he said, "Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a guy is losing something he thought he wanted, so he can find what he actually needed." Mark thought he needed to prove his worth, but Victoria showed him that he already had worth. He just needed someone who could see it. Robert pulled me aside during the reception. He was emotional, which was rare for him. "Mark, you've transformed my niece. I've never seen her so happy. And you taught me an important lesson about not judging a man's worth by his job, but by his character. Thank you for that." Patricia cried through the whole ceremony. Tears of happiness, she assured everyone. Maybe also tears of regret for what her daughter threw away, but she never said. Jessica came to the wedding. It was a tough decision to invite her, but Victoria insisted. "Family is family," she said, "and maybe seeing what real love looks like will help her." She came with a new boyfriend, Andrew, whom she'd met online. An accountant, divorced, a father of 2. He seemed like a good man, tired but kind. She was different, quieter, more humble. The therapy was working, apparently. During the reception, she approached us. She was nervous, wringing her hands. "Mark, Victoria," she began, "I want to apologize for real. What I did was unforgivable. Mark, I treated you terribly. Victoria, I said horrible things. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed to say it." We looked at each other. Victoria squeezed my hand. "Jessica," I said, "the past is the past. We all learned something. I wish you happiness, sincerely." She nodded, her eyes welling up. "You two deserve all the happiness in the world, and you got it. It's beautiful to see." She walked away back to Andrew, who was waiting patiently for her. Maybe she had learned something after all. Today, 5 years later, life is good. Better than good. It's full. Victoria is now the vice principal of her school. She worked hard, studied, dedicated herself. Seeing her achieve her dreams fills me with pride. I started my own electrical contracting company, MS Electric. It started small, just me and 2 employees. Now we have a team of 15 and contracts with some of the biggest developers in the city. Jessica was wrong. There wasn't a ceiling for an electrician, only for someone with a limited vision. We have a house in Beverly. Nothing extravagant, but it's ours. It has a big backyard where our 2 kids, 3-year-old Peter and 1-year-old Laura, can play. It has a workshop in the garage where I can work on personal projects and teach Peter about tools. Victoria has turned one room into a library, with floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with the science fiction books we now collect together. On Sundays, while the kids are napping, we lie on the couch and read together, our legs intertwined in comfortable silence. The family is still close. Robert and Patricia are doting grandparents. They completely forget they ever thought my job was inferior when Peter talks about Grandpa Mark, who makes the lights work. Danny and Marina live nearby. Our kids are growing up together like siblings. The Sunday barbecues are now a sacred tradition, filled with laughter, cold beer, and love. Jessica has rebuilt her life too. She married Andrew, had a daughter. She works at a smaller company now without the old glamour, but she seems more at peace. At family gatherings, we're cordial. The past isn't forgotten, but it is forgiven. Sometimes late at night, when Victoria is sleeping beside me, her hand on my chest, our children safe in their rooms, I think about that night in the kitchen of the old apartment. You're easily replaceable. Jessica was right about one thing. I was easily replaceable in her life, but she was wrong about what that meant. It didn't make me worthless. It set me free to find my real worth, and more importantly, it set me free to find someone who would never think of replacing me. Someone who sees me not as a project to be improved, but as a partner for life. Victoria stirs in her sleep, snuggling closer. She murmurs my name and smiles, still asleep. I kiss her forehead gently, breathing in the scent of her hair, still the same soft jasmine from years ago. Sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all. It's simply to live well, to love completely, and to be genuinely, undeniably happy. And I am. God, am I ever happy.